Hello everybody and welcome back to another Unity 5 tutorial. In the last session we polished up our UMA's talking skills, and in this session, as promised, we're going to clean up our UMA tools a little bit. So the goal of the session is actually to change or adjust our UMA's initializer script and a few other scripts. So as we hit test UMA, create a test UMA, we will get an NPC object holding our UMA and holding the waypoints and being able to walk and talk. So let's do that. The first thing we're gonna look at is our, surprise, surprise, UMA initializer script, which is in the editor folder. So I open that up in MonoDevelop. And here in our add test UMA function is, this is where everything is gonna happen. So the first thing we do here is, let's just comment that nicely. We're gonna create an NPC now. So we do the same as we've done before. We create a new object, a new game object, sorry. And I just want to make sure that if we create multiple NPCs that they are labeled differently. So far, if we hit test UMA a few times, we will always get a game object called test UMA, even though there is already a test UMA there, and that gets pretty fast, pretty confusing. So let's change that. So I set an index to 0, and then we will try to find a game object called NPC index. So if this one is while this one is not null, so while there is an object found, we're gonna increase our index. So index plus plus. And as soon as it's not null anymore, as soon as it is null, which means we got the right index, now we can create our object or name our object we've created already. We're gonna name our test NPC index. So the next thing we want to do is parent our test UMA game object to our NPC game object. So test UMA dot transform set parent to test NPC dot transform. And I'm also going to remove the test here out of the name, so we will now have an UMA game object within our NPC game object. So then let's just have a quick look again at our disabled object here. So our NPC game object holds the NPC Manager. Then we got our UMA. Our UMA got all the necessary movement components, and we've got a waypoints object also. So this is what we need to set up now. The first thing will be the NPC Manager. I just want to hold a reference to it for later use. So I'm going to create a variable NPC Manager. And we add the component NPC Manager. There we go. So now we need to clean up this entire section here, which is commented. So we just commented that because we didn't want our UMA to walk away while we try to teach him to talk. Now that we've done so successfully, I just want to rearrange things here a bit. So let's just call this movement, this entire section. And now the first thing we obviously need is our waypoints object. Waypoints object is a new game object, and we're gonna add the component ggtools waypoints script. So of course this requires that you're using the waypoint script that I've created in the tools series. If you don't want to use that, you would just need to set up your own scripts here. So the waypoint script right now, it does not do anything but serving some coordinates to some positions to our movement, to the movement scripts we're using. Later on we will add a bit more, so yeah, you might want to consider using the waypoint script. So we also need to parent this one, so same as before, set parent to test npc.transform. And our NPC Manager has a variable for holding the waypoint script, so I would just want to assign this right away. Get component. Yeah. Waypoint script. I'm actually planning to include our UMA tools into the GG tools or toolset, so then we will be able to omit, it will be in the same namespace, and we will be able to omit the namespace reference here. For now, we keep it that way. So another thing that is still missing, what we just added manually as we were playing around with our walking UMA, was the NPC follow path script. So that's the script that sends the UMA from one waypoint to the next waypoint in a waypoints array. So let's add this one as well. So here, test UMA add component NPC follow path. So now we save that, and there is an error. NPC Manager. Yeah, we don't have a manager here, we have a manager. Okay. There seem to be no errors, so I'm just gonna try it. We get our NPC 0. There's our UMA holding all the components we need for walking and talking. And we got our waypoints set up with our first waypoint. Please move away light. With our first waypoint set up properly. Okay. And now let's just test that the name works. Yeah, we got an UMA, an NPC1, NPC2 as I add more. Now let me just delete the last two. And now as we hit play, there should be a bunch of I'm gonna disable this one, otherwise he's gonna talk the whole time. So okay, now we've got of course, we just added the simple lip sync script and the audio source and everything in our UMA initializer as well. So we just need to adjust it that he doesn't start talking right away. So this will be our next task. I think we're done in this script for now. Let's head over to the NPC simple lip sync script. And here what I want to do is basically empty the start function, or remove everything from the start function which is not generic for any audio source, any any speech that you have. So let's call this function start talking. Obviously later on this would need to be replaced with some sort of logic defining which audio file is meant to be processed. But for now we just want to keep it simple. Oh, one too many. And just add this in here. So this is it, but now we of course we need to somehow call this start talking function, and we're gonna do this on our NPC Manager object, and we're gonna add some buttons here using an editor script. So let's do this. Create a new C# script, call it NPC Manager Editor. Open it up in MonoDevelop. We use Unity Editor, derive it from the editor script, and we can safely remove all this. We create a custom editor type of NPC Manager. So let's just get a reference right away to our NPC Manager script. So on enable we get a reference casting the target value variable to our NPC Manager script. So we also need a few more, but let's stick for now with our simple lip sync script. So we need a reference to that one. I'm going to call the variable lip sync. And on enable, the way we retrieve the reference to it is as following. We use our script, call a get component in children, not components. You gotta watch out here, otherwise it returns an array. So if you would have multiple children holding the same component, then you can iterate through all of them and retrieve each instance of that component. We just know we only got one and we only want one, so we're gonna use get component in children. And the component is an NPC simple lip sync script. There we go. Now we are gonna override the onInspector GUI. Inspector GUI. And the first thing, like always, just want to make sure we don't delete anything that might be in the inspector set up by our NPC Manager script. And here I create now a GUI layout button. The button is called Talk Now. And as we hit this button, there we want to call our function that we've just created in our lip sync script called start talking. So sorry, I just had to figure out what that error was about. It could not find my start talking function, and I've tried a whole lot, and at the end I just deleted those 3 lines, wrote them new, and it worked. So that's how weird things can be sometimes. So anyways, what we now got is our Talk Now button. So let's hit play and try it out. There is our UMA. Just gonna zoom in a bit. And as I hit Talk Now,
the birch canoe slid on the smooth plank.
He's talking.
Blew the sheep.
But as you can see, it does not look the way it looked like at the end of last session. So there's still a few things we need to change. Let's open up our NPC simple lip sync script. And here I just want to change the values to what we've set up as our default values in the last session, or not default values, but the values that worked for us. So that was 300, 2007, and smooth on was set on true. So let's try this again. We need to delete it because otherwise the values are overwritten already. So hit play. There he is.
The birch canoe slid on the smooth planks. Glue the sheet to the dark blue background.
And it works.
It's easy to tell the depth of a well.
So of course it would be nice to have function to stop him talk as well, but I'm gonna keep that for later. For now I just know I can press a button and the UMA starts talking. Sweet. Now would be nice to have the same effect with walking as well. And yeah, let's do that. So let's open the follow path CS. And we basically want to do exactly the same thing here. We want to write a public void function init path, and here we're gonna get everything from our start function. Save the script, and there's another thing we need to add here, because our script is set up that as soon as this one is run, as soon as the script is initialized, we have an update function call constantly checking, and this will not work since we now omitted all those lines from our start function. So in order to not get errors, we need to wrap things a little bit. So I'm gonna use a public bool. Public, so you can also access this variable from other places. So, and of course, we want our character to start walking as soon as we initialize our path. But in our update function, I'm just going to wrap it in an if statement. So, yeah, that's about it. And in our NPC Manager Editor, we're gonna do the same what we've done before, but now we're gonna use our NPC follow path script. Oh. So excuse me. follow. Let's just copy and paste here. NPC follow path. And again, we can copy and paste. Instead of talk now, we want a button called walk now. And we call our init path function. So I save the script. And there's our button. Now let's see. Right now we only have got one waypoint, so that's actually not enough for walking. Of course, if we move that one around, but I think it's nice to have the first waypoint on the initial position of the UMA. And now let's try that again. Walk now, and there he goes. Of course, he's running now because in our follow path, no, not in that one, sorry. In our movement script, we've set the speed initially to 1.0. I'm gonna set that to 0.6. And now as we hit play, as we hit walk now, he's still running, of course. Same problem as before, we already initialized our UMA, so the change to the default settings will not work anymore. So I add a waypoint, hit play, walk now, and there he goes, smoothly walking to his destination. And he's so happy that he just starts talking about canoes and sheep and rice and everything. Sweet. So there we go. This wraps up our UMA initializer for now. In the following tutorials, what I plan to look at is how to get our UMA walk from one position to another depending on events. And I also want to cover sort of like a daily schedule, give our UMA some work to do. I'm not sure yet in which order I'm gonna do that, and again, especially the walking will go hand in hand with the waypoint script. I actually might also just work on that one first and then move again to a character session. I don't know yet. But yeah, this is where we're heading. And I think maybe in the next session already, we might just get all of this in our RPG project in order to try it out in a real scene. So until then, see you. Thanks for watching.